Welcome to the Wicket.
Hello and welcome to your weekly serving of Cricket Chat from Arab News. I'm Brian Murgatroyd, and with me as ever to digest the latest goings-on around the globe are Arab News columnist Jon Pike and Arab News cricket reporter Subas Humagain. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Brian.
Hello, Brian.
And in this episode, we chew over England's men's capitulation in the final test of their five-match tour in India and pick over the series as a whole. We discuss an outstanding run chase by Australia's men in the second test against New Zealand in Christchurch that sealed a 2-0 series win. We wrap up the T20I series between Bangladesh and Sri Lanka as both sides look ahead to this year's ICC T20 World Cup. We chat about the Afghanistan-Ireland One-Day International Series in the UAE. We speak about the second leg of the ICC's World League 2, with the UAE hosting Canada and Scotland. We assess the latest goings-on in the Women's Premier League in India, the Pakistan Super League, and the suggestion that Australia is all set to make changes to its men's and women's short-form tournament to try and stave off a loss of players to other competitions. On top of all that, Subas and Jon, as ever, give us their personal highlights from the past week. That's all to come then, so let's get underway. We begin this week with a wrap-up of the Test series between India and England men's teams. India overwhelmed Ben Stokes' side by an innings and 64 runs inside 3 days in the fifth and final test in Dharamshala to wrap up a fourth win in 5 matches on the tour and send England home with their tails between their legs. England were in a strong position after winning the toss and batting. They reached 100 for 1 in the over before lunch, but a batting collapse saw them finish with 218, and that was nowhere near enough to put pressure on the home batting, as Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill both made hundreds in response to that England effort, and they took a lead of 259. England then capitulated for 195, with only Joe Root last out for 84, showing the fight necessary. R. Ashwin took 5 second innings wickets to give him 9 in the match on his 100th Test appearance, and that made for a sombre 100th Test appearance of his own for Johnny Bairstow, who made scores of 29 and 39. Jon, from an England perspective, this was just a test too far, wasn't it? They seem to have no fight left in them.
Well, they didn't when push came to shove. I think the batting collapses are the real issue. They obviously have a lot of thinking to do, as they admit. There's much media comment about Bazball, as you may imagine. For those who never really bought into it, having their pound of flesh. Looking ahead, got tests at home against the West Indies and Sri Lanka before Pakistan in October and New Zealand in December. I think all of which allow for a reset before a tough 2025 with a home series against India and then Australia in 2025-26.
Subas, what a fantastic victory for India. This test had 3 players in their top 7 who debuted in the series, but they didn't miss a beat, did they? And they stamped on England while they were down.
I think the test will be marked as turning point for this new generation in years to come. I think the way India started the series, there were doubts about the result. England gave them some chances, and after that, India picked up with both hands. They took the risk in team selections, and credit to players who reacted according to the situation. Jurel and Sarfaraz's rise will be talked about for a long time. There is a standing up to the belief that was the key. Bumrah was at his best during the midway, and I think Jaiswal, on the other hand, looks out of his world.
Doesn't he just? Player of the series, Jaiswal, for over 700 runs, an exceptional performance from that young man. Jon, though, a word on James Anderson, who gave England a crumb of comfort on the final day of the Test match with his 700th Test wicket. What a remarkable achievement.
Yeah, it gave them and him something to celebrate on a fairly sparsely laden table. Typically, he played it down, saying there's nothing to celebrate as a team and not won. But it is a fabulous achievement at the age of 41. All began in, 2003. Somebody changed his action, he lost his way for a while, and he's got better with age. Between 2003 and 2013, he took 340 wickets at 30.6. And then in the last 10 years, he's taken 360 at 22.67. I think whatever way you look at it, this is a unique career.
It's truly remarkable figures there. Subas, do the likes of KL Rahul, Rishabh Pant, Mohammad Shami and Virat Kohli walk back into this Indian side now? Or do the India selectors have some tough thinking to do? Kohli, I guess, is an obvious yes to the question, but how many of the new faces keep their spots?
Well, one thing is they don't have test schedule for a long time now, but when they are back in red ball cricket, I think Rahul, Pant and Jurel will start from zero. Jurel is more likely to keep wickets for me. Pant is an X factor, you can't leave him out, but with his fitness in mind, I think it will take some time for him to wicket keep in tests. Rahul will need to fire as batter now that Jurel has been safer option behind the stumps. Sarfaraz could be unlucky once Kohli comes, as they will need to accommodate him in the team, but will they play both Jadeja and Ashwin in away conditions is another factor. So one thing is for sure, India has got their bench strength stronger than ever.
Yes, they certainly have. What an impressive performance from India's newcomers during this series. John, on the other hand, there's been a lot of talk about that's the way we play from England, but will a series loss of this scale prompt, even behind closed doors, an admission that there needs to be more pragmatism added to the mix? That's now 3 series in a row for England without victory, and for all the talk of wonderful cricket, it's results that count, isn't it?
There are some confused messages coming out. I think the coach is saying that at times they haven't been aggressive enough, which is quite a remarkable statement. But I think for me, the telling comment came from James Anderson. He said, we've stuck together really well. We really enjoy being together as a group, and there's more to come from this team. So I think that probably shows the thinking ahead, maybe a bit more pragmatism, but I don't foresee too much change in approach, probably some change in personnel.
Subas, just talk to us about the Indian Cricket Board's Test Cricket Incentive Scheme, offering bonuses for playing the long form of the game. This was announced off the back of the test in Dharamshala and follows on from the board's request to players not to prioritise short form cricket ahead of tests.
Well, I'm delighted to see this step from BCCI. IPL has revolutionized the cricket around the globe, and this step shows that the board really cares about this form of the game as well. I think this will not only help players who are suited for long format cricket to stick to the gameplay and not worry much about that franchise money they're missing out on. I think test specialist players will be happy to focus on this incentive and not think about changing their playing style and game for franchise contracts.
And John, what about the positives and negatives for England from this series? The spinners, Tom Hartley and Shoaib Bashir, shared 39 wickets between them, which must rank as a big plus. But the middle order was pretty much a disaster, wasn't it, with the bat?
Yeah, it's a big problem area in the middle. Hartley and Bashir are definite pluses. They've got issues to decide over who's going to keep wicket. Also, the quick bowlers, how they're going to take 20 wickets, especially when it comes to playing Australia. Jimmy says he's going to carry on, but I would think even for him, Australia 2025-26 looks a step too far. And anyway, things are likely to be a lot different by then.
Yes, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge before England get to Australia in a couple of years' time, no question about that. Subas, is this India team now ready to go on and win the major prize that's eluded it so far? That's the ICC Test World Championship. The likes of Yashasvi Jaiswal and Sarfaraz Khan have scored runs in Indian conditions. Can they do it overseas?
Well, if you look at the recent history, India looked unbeatable on course of the tournament, but they faltered at the business end. It was same in the previous cycle of test series as well, and they've started well this time. Just while the way he plays, I think it won't be a problem for him. He was on fire in totally new condition in China just last year and has flourished in IPL too. Sarfaraz, on the other hand, I think he'll need to prove himself away, and that too while fighting for his spot with peers of the game. So the early signs are pretty much a good one for India, but they'll need to carry this momentum when it comes in the business end.
Well, for both these teams now, there's a switch to white ball cricket with the T20 World Cup on the horizon. And before that, of course, there's the small matter of the Indian Premier League. Australia won a thrilling second test in Christchurch by 3 wickets to seal a 2-0 series win over their near neighbours New Zealand and extend their stranglehold over their opponents in tests between the two sides. It's been 13 years since New Zealand's last test win against Australia. They've got one win, that was in Hobart in 2011, in their last 33 tests against Australia. And it's been 31 years since New Zealand's last test win against Australia at home. And surely they'll never have a better chance than the one they've just passed up this time to end that long and dismal streak. Australia were 80 for 5 on what turned out to be the final day, chasing 279, but 80 from Mitch Marsh and 98 not out from Alex Carey, together with an unbeaten 32 from captain Pat Cummins, saw Australia home despite 9 wickets in the match for Matt Henry and a pacey debut from new young fast bowler Ben Sears. John, simple question. How on earth did Australia win that test match?
Well, I'm still scratching my head about that one. Extraordinary. Another example of Australia never knowing when they're beaten. You know, they've got people who stand up and be countered in a crisis. There's no weak underbellies in them. Likes of Mitch Marsh. They covered up a stuttering top order, but they did ride their luck. Of course, Mitch Marsh was dropped early on, and I have to say this must rank as Carey's top innings ever. I would have thought he played within his limits and according to the conditions, and I think that's really what you would expect from people who are playing properly in a Test match.
Yes, it was a tremendous chase that from Marsh and Carey under extreme pressure. Subas, by the same token, how on earth did New Zealand lose that Test match?
Brian, even I'm amused after that start in the fourth innings. I was convinced New Zealand are finally going to do it, but they're hit by another Mark's heroic innings. Carey was under pressure going through the bleak period with bat, but I think his time is placed now, one of the best innings you'll ever see. And Cummins did what he is expected to do. I think after that stark wicket, New Zealand had a chance to push Australia over, but I think New Zealand they thought they had this, but this will add another break in that big wall between the countries, and Australia, I think they're still miles ahead. Should be the answer from this one.
Absolutely. John, there's a warm glow for Australia with that win, but it seems they have serious batting issues. The switch to open by Steve Smith just doesn't seem to be working, and Travis Head looks in need of a rest after his heroics in tests and at the World Cup last year, doesn't he?
Yes, they do have problems at the top of the order. I mean, is it time for Bancroft or Harris or Hanscom? They always seem to find a solution. Are they going to change their face towards those players now, given that they do have a bit of a crisis?
Yes, it'll be interesting to see whether the Australian selectors stick or twist there in the long term. It was interesting as well to hear Andrew McDonald, the Australian coach, in the aftermath of that test win, say that he didn't think that Steve Smith had a long enough run as an opening bat to be judged properly. So that seems to indicate that he's going to be given additional opportunities at the top of the order. Subas, this was a significant loss for New Zealand, as a win would have pushed them into the top 2 in the race for a place in the Test World Championship final. Does it mean that the series between Australia and India at the end of the year is going to be a dress rehearsal for that Test final to come in 2025?
Well, it seems to be the case, Brian. Both the teams are playing excellent cricket, and New Zealand losing both home matches means it only gets harder from them for here on. Win here would have helped them statistically as well as the mental side, but the road looks tough ahead for them, and Australia looks on course to make it to another final.
Bangladesh and Sri Lanka's men are battling it out in white ball action in Bangladesh, and they've just concluded a T20I series which Sri Lanka won 2-1. We chatted about the first match, won by Sri Lanka by 3 runs in the previous podcast, but in match 2 it was a comfortable win for Bangladesh by 8 wickets, with captain Najmal Hossain Shanto easing his side home with 53 not out from 38 balls. Then in the decider, Sri Lanka made 174 for 7 off the back of Kushal Mendis's 86 from 55 balls, and were always winning after a hat-trick by Nuwan Thushara helped reduce the home side to 32 for 6, Sri Lanka eventually securing the win by 28 runs. Subas, talk to us about Thushara, another seam bowler off the Sri Lanka production line and very much a white ball specialist. Kushal Mendis compared him afterwards to Lasith Malinga, and there can't be much higher praise than that, can there?
Yes, his slinging action reminds us of Malinga, but I think he went a bit overboard with the comparison. But what a performance that was! And start, I think the batters simply failed to read him. Tusara single-handedly rocked the top order, and the Tigers did not recover from that hit. To get opposition's best three batters in a hat trick is one rare feat. And with the performance, I think the World Cup spot looks booked for him, and they will be facing Bangladesh in the group stage too. I think that makes it more special.
So psychologically, that's a very important series win for Sri Lanka. But John, the aftermath of the third and final match was interesting as Sri Lanka's players posed with the trophy, pointing at their wrists in reference to the timed out dismissal that marred the World Cup match between the two sides last year when Angelo Matthews was dismissed in that fashion. Najmul Hossain Shanto said afterwards it was time for Sri Lanka to move on from that, and he was clearly agitated by the fact it was brought up again. What's your take on things?
Well, it takes a while for bad blood of that sort to clear the system, even though one of the main culprits was not there. It's probably time to move on, but maybe Bangladesh don't have a sense of humour, as she find it quite amusing. It will be interesting when they meet in the World Cup, I think on June the 7th, to see whether it has cleared the system.
Yes, everyone will be looking at their watches throughout the course of that match, I think, in the World Cup. Well, it certainly gave me a smile anyway when the Sri Lankan players posed in that fashion after their series win. The two sides are now lining up for 3 one-day internationals ahead of 2 test matches, and we'll chat about the one-day internationals on our next episode. After the euphoria of their first test win over Afghanistan, Ireland's men have bumped down to earth in the one-day international series between the two sides in Sharjah. The first match went the way of Afghanistan by a comfortable margin of 35 runs as they scored 310 for 5 having been put into bat, with Ramanullah Gurbas making 121, his 6th one-day international 100, but only after being dropped by Curtis Camphor on 7. In response, Ireland slipped to 34 for 3, and although Harry Tector made a brilliant 138, supported by Lorcan Tucker with 85, Afghanistan were always ahead of the game. Match 2 was washed away after torrential rain across the UAE before, in Match 3, Afghanistan romped home by 117 runs. Again, they were put into bat, but this time they could muster only 236 for 9. It looked as though that wouldn't be enough as Ireland reached 77 for 1 and then 93 for 2. But at that point, Mohamed Nabi taking a career best 5 for 17 and debutant left-arm spinner Nagia Karote captured 4 for 30 and Ireland lost their last 8 wickets for just 26. They were all out for 119. Subas, Afghanistan have started slowly in recent white ball series against India and Sri Lanka, so their win here has been an important statement, hasn't it? What do you make of it from an Afghanistan perspective?
Well, the fact is that they suited for this outer game, and the performance was not a surprise. I think Gurbaz is turning out to be the key player in top order. It looks like that they're not missing Mohammad Sezad at all, and bowling Navi and David and Nangolia rocked the middle order and lower order of Irish team. And Navi has been continuing his form despite Rashid not being there. I think that was most important part of that game because without Rashid, we expected Afghani bowling unit to suffer, but I think Navi has held it quite well.
Yes, that really was an impressive aspect of the series win for Afghanistan, the fact that they did it without Rashid Khan. John, Harry Tector's 100 in match 1 was his 5th in one-day internationals. It leaves him nestling comfortably in the top 10 of the men's one-day international batting rankings, with players like Babar Azam, Shubman Gill, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, Daryl Mitchell and the recently retired David Warner. And he well deserves a place within that group, doesn't he?
He does, looking very impressive. I think he needs a bit more support to be able to push on from there. Has some support from Lorcan Tucker, but he can't do it all alone. Nonetheless, for Ireland to be producing such talent is terrific for the game, both for Ireland and generally.
Yes, I've been very impressed with Harry Tector and very impressed with the way he's developed his game over the past couple of years. He's no doubt benefited from the ICC World Cup Super League that led into last year's World Cup, and it's such a shame that Ireland and a lot of the teams down the bottom of the rankings there and not getting those regular opportunities against the top sides that they got through that World Cup Super League. That's a debate for another day, though. Subas, the first match of the series saw a debut for Afghanistan for mystery spinner Al-Mohamed Ghazanfar, who became the youngest one-day international debutant for his country at 16 years and 236 days. Then there was Korote's debut in the third match alongside Naveen Zadran, the fast bowler who impressed in the test match. Are you happy to see players thrown in at the deep end like this at a young age?
Well, Ghazanfar bowled well in the Under-19 World Cup and was rock solid with bat against Nepal on 19 in that Super 60-sider match. But when I was surprised to see him handed the cap in that first match, I think Afghanistan do have other options in that role. Maybe this is something special that we are yet to see. Putting youngsters in senior side against top teams does give experience. But along with this, there will be high expectation too, and how they take the opportunity will be the key. But side by side, not backing them after having them for a while will affect them mentally. And with Rashid coming back, I wonder what will be the case here.
Indeed. Well, John, Afghanistan, would you say they look in good order in the white ball format? They've got it in themselves to play in the ICC Champions Trophy next year. That's a debut for them in that competition. Have they got the capability to be serious contenders in that tournament when they take that bow?
They're in better condition, have been thrashed Ireland by 117 runs. I would think in the Champions Trophy, expect them to take a couple of scalps, but I think most of the opposition is going to be too strong.
The latest action in the ICC's Cricket World Cup League 2 has seen the UAE host Scotland and Canada in one-day internationals, with each side playing the others twice each. Remember, the Cricket World Cup League 2 involves 8 teams: Canada, Namibia, Nepal, the Netherlands, Oman, Scotland, the UAE and the USA, with the top 4 sides securing direct entry to the next ICC Cricket World Cup qualifier, while the bottom 4 sides will have to go into a playoff in order to reach the last stage of progress towards the 2027 Cricket World Cup in South Africa. In this latest leg, Canada, newly promoted to this level after more than a decade in the doldrums, won all 4 of its matches, while there was 1 win for Scotland plus 2 losses to Canada and a washed-out game against the UAE, while the hosts, they failed to secure a single win in the leg. John, what a revival this is from Canada. In the mid-2000s, they were one of the very best associate sides, but then they fell apart. What do you think is behind this resurgence?
Well, there is an ebb and flow in sides, and at this level there are so many factors. You have to identify players who are good enough, you have to identify players who can afford to play, given that they're part-timers. You need good coaching, and you need to manage a cycle of older players and new ones coming through. It can and does take a decade if not properly managed, and this seems to have been the case in Canada.
Well, Subas, the UAE, for their part, they really are a mercurial side. They now finally have a new coach with Lalchand Rajput, the former Zimbabwe and Afghanistan coach, at the helm. And if you didn't know the scale of the task ahead of him beforehand, he most assuredly does now.
Certainly the worst possible that UAE could have imagined. Also looks like the coach needs time to settle down with the team. He had very little time after that. ILT20 and players' availability has hampered the preparations. They came only in the second match. Ali Nasir is nowhere to be seen. Batting wise, I think Rajput will need some number from middle order too, and he knows how to get that. But at this time, I think he needs time with the team.
Yes, Ali Nazir missing due to educational commitments in the UK. The UAE, meanwhile, playing a T20 series against Scotland as we record this podcast, and we'll wrap that up for you on the next episode. But John, from Scotland's perspective, a quiet start to this campaign for them. Remember, they were so close to qualifying for the Cricket World Cup, not only this time just recently passed, but also the time before that as well. They're still recovering from having to deal with allegations of racism within the game. And this week, there's been a report released cataloguing misogyny and sexism within the game in Scotland. There was an irony with this report being addressed by a female CEO of Cricket Scotland, so that suggests things are moving in the right direction. But how much of a distraction is this latest ugly set of headlines for the Scots players?
That's difficult to know. Racism was raised in Scotland even before, as in the FIC in England and Wales. From what I hear from people who play in Scotland, the game's not in a great state there. Is there a knock-on effect? It may be that it's affecting the administrators more than the players. But I think if you have a bad situation, then it probably does trickle down.
Subas, with 2 rounds of the tournament now done and dusted, but with Oman and the USA still to play, is it too early to start making judgments on how things might play out?
Well, the tabletoppers Canada were certainly impressive in the UAE tour, but I still have doubts if they will be able to continue this run going forward. Apuputu Dasanaike spent 3 weeks in Nepal to prepare the team, and the batting was rightly tested here. They put that to use well in the UAE. Kalim Sana took his time with his injury and made it count. Scotland and Netherlands, without some big players, have been competitive, and Namibia look like they are a team to beat this time. And Nepal, on the other hand, are searching for balance. Oman will be tested in this cycle because it will be interesting to see how they use their old cards. USA Cricket will have more eligible players coming in, and how the team forms will be the key. But for what we have seen till now, I think the cycle will be more competitive than the previous one.
Yes, plenty to look forward to then in this League Two, and we'll cover them all, of course, here at the Wicket. In the Women's Premier League in India, the 2 finalists from last season, Mumbai and Delhi, are still very much in charge of affairs at the head of the 5-team round-robin table, while Royal Challengers Bangalore beat Mumbai in their final group match to pip UP Warriors and the Gujarat Giants to the remaining playoff place. John, let's talk about Elise Perry first of all. She took 6 for 15 and then scored 40 not out from 38 balls in that win for RCB over Mumbai to take RCB into the playoffs along with Mumbai and Delhi. Even by Perry's standards, and what a stellar career she's had, this really was something else, wasn't it?
Yes, it comes at a time when people begin to think she's on the wane, but he certainly answered that comment in magnificent style. It will be a sad day when she does retire from the game.
Yeah, what a trailblazer she's been, not only for Australian women's cricket, but for women's cricket worldwide. And this was another laurel wreath to add to the many she's collected over many years now. Subas, one bright spot for Gujarat in an otherwise disappointing campaign has been the emergence of young India seaman swing bowler Shabnam Shakil. What have you made of her?
Well, just 16 years of age and you're rubbing shoulders against the elite of the game is something. And to get 3 of the world's top batter is something beyond dreams. Snatch, Survivor, Burnt, Haley and Chamari in the same game. I think that's a dream for many players out there to get wickets of these players. And she's gone and done it in the same match at the age of just 16. I think it's beyond dreams. And head coach Michael Klinger emphasized how serious she is with her work ethic and has impressed the analyst in training, which led to her being picked. She already has a strong swing and had some pace as well. Klinger also spoke how matured she is. So I think India might have unearthed a gem of a player here with the Women's Premier League.
Yes, really positive news, not only for Gujarat, but also for India, as you say there, Subas. John, Meg Lanning, she's been one of the dominating batters at this event for Delhi, and her form has certainly rolled back the clock. Do you think this could be a prelude to her return to international colours for Australia? Or do you think that's utterly unrealistic after her retirement announcement this past Australian season?
And she was pretty adamant that was the end. There was no spark left, she said. She wanted to do other things and enjoy herself. And it certainly seems to be the case that she's doing that in the WPL so far. Australia tend not to look backwards, so I would say it's unlikely, but never say never if injuries came along for any of the top Australians.
Well, she's clearly enjoying her cricket again now, which is fantastic to see. Before we leave this topic, a question for both of you, and it's one we've asked already on this podcast in previous episodes. It's worth asking again. John, first of all, who is your favourite to lift the title now and why?
Well, I'm going for Delhi Capitals in great form. I think there's more to come. I think the aforesaid Meg Lanning is driving them. And I think, they were runners-up last year. And I think there's a desire there and talent, of course, to become champions this year. So that's where I'm going to put my money.
And Subas, what about you? Where's your money going, other than in your pocket?
Well, I'm sticking with Delhi, like I previously said. I think Mike has been fantastic. Sutherland, on the other hand, has not been able to make the mark, but I think they have resources for the big games. And Jemima, I think Caesar's and will only get better.
Yes, it's going to be fascinating to see how that tournament concludes. The final is on Sunday, the 17th of March. And we'll be back next time with a wrap-up of that match and the tournament as a whole. The top 4 sides in the Pakistan Super League have been confirmed, with Peshawar Zalmi, Multan Sultans, Islamabad United and Quetta Gladiators secure in that top 4, while Karachi Kings missed out thanks to a run of 3 winless games mid-tournament, and the defending champions Lahore Qalandars ended with just 1 win from 10 matches, a truly disastrous campaign. Subas, which side or sides do you think are best placed ahead of the finals campaign?
I think Multan Sultans are the favourites now. Mohammad Usman has got 2 centuries and was out of nervous 90s before that. Usama Mir has produced what was expected from him. Rizwan, as a captain, has led the side, has got amongst the runs, and I think he's best suited to take his side to the title.
And John Babar Azam, he's been the standout batter so far, playing superbly for Peshawar. Is this a signal he's finally managed to turn the corner and put behind him the very modest Cricket World Cup, the loss of the Pakistan captaincy, and a modest test tour of Australia too?
Well, one would hope so. Seems that he wasn't happy with the way the team played during his captaincy. He made his feelings known, or he suffered some poor relations with some of the players. He wasn't happy to be removed, so he's had a pretty rough time. I guess he must be feeling at home with Peshawar Army. So it is good to see because he is such a fine player.
Absolutely. Subas, let's turn to the bowlers now, and I'm just wondering which bowlers have caught your attention. It's been interesting, hasn't it, to see 2 spinners, Usama Mir of Multan and Abra Ahmed of Quetta, near the top of the wicket-taking list, because we always associate Pakistan with tear-away fast bowlers, reverse swinging the ball in at pace, but it's been spin that's caught some of the attention, at least, in the bowling stakes.
I think it's good for Pakistan as well. Fast bowling options are pretty much available wherever you go in Pakistan, but spinners has been the real headache. Both Amir and Abrar were part of the senior side, so they had to come to the forefront, especially with T20 World Cup looming. And Mir has showed what he will be. I think he'll be taking the flight to US and Caribbean with this performance. Abrar was part of the test side, but I think with Sadaf Khan not having good bowling performance in this tournament and out of the national team scene, you never know if he'll be getting called up as well.
Yeah, Shadab Khan's been struggling with the ball for a while. He struggled as well, of course, in the ILT20 when he played for the Desert Vipers, coming back into cricket off the back of a lengthy injury absence after the World Cup. John, where are you inclined to see this trophy ending up, given that we're going to see a different name on it this season than last, with the Qalandars' disastrous title defence? Where do you see the winners coming from?
Subas has gone for, I think, a fairly obvious one with the Sultans. It's very close to call. I'm going to go with the Peshawar Zalmi and Babar to capitalise on his resurgence.
Well, we'll find out soon enough. The final is on Monday, March the 18th. We'll wrap up the tournament next time for you here at The Wicket. A couple more news items for you. Former Australia all-rounder Shane Watson, a Cricket World Cup winner with Australia in 2015, has reportedly been sounded out about becoming Pakistan's next head coach. He's coached the Quetta Gladiators to the playoffs of the PSL for the first time in 5 years, and he's previously worked under Ricky Ponting at Delhi in the IPL and also helmed the San Francisco Unicorns in Major League Cricket in the USA. John, for all his success in the PSL this season, this would appear to be a little bit of a left field idea from the PCB, wouldn't it?
Well, nothing surprises me with the PCB and its ever-changing administrative situation. And Mickey Arthur did it. He was allowed flexibility. Of course, Bob Warmer did it some years ago. Why not Shane for a while? But he lives in Sydney with a young family, and he's got, as you say, a pretty busy schedule throughout the year. It probably could be a bit too much, I think, for him to take on.
Subas Darren Sami is another candidate who's been mentioned in the media. I guess there are two ways of looking at this. Either it's good to get in outsiders and have a different perspective, but with due respect, what is their understanding of Pakistan cricket and cricketers, and does it need a local perhaps to navigate the usually choppy waters of Pakistan cricket politics?
Well, Sammy and Watson have shared field with current crop of Pakistan players, and I personally think this is not the right time for these new coaches to be involved. We've seen Pakistan cricket going through tough period off the field, and to balance both sides and produce result will be tough for these newcomers. I think it's a local choice for now would be a pretty easy job, as they understand the out of the field antics as well. But if Sammy or Watson come in, I think the players will have a bigger role to fill.
Well, whatever happens, we'll keep an eye on developments here at the Wicket. In Australia, meanwhile, there are reports the Big Bash League and the Women's Big Bash League are set for changes. The BBL may be about to allow one overseas player per team to be contracted on a multi-year deal ahead of the draft, with the proviso they must stay for the whole tournament. And the WBBL may be set to reduce its number of matches from 56 to 40 for next season to allow star players to be available throughout, as otherwise many may miss the start of the action, with the ICC Women's T20 World Cup in Bangladesh taking place late in the year. John, these are sensible decisions, or they would appear to be anyway, particularly the men's contracting idea, given the pressure the BBL's been under from rival leagues. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. It's an interesting first mover initiative. My thought would be allowing one overseas player per team. Why limit it to one?
Well, I guess everything has to start with the first step, and this is the step that the BBL has decided to take. But you make an interesting point there, because, of course, other leagues around the world, they just contract players directly. I think particularly the ILT20, rather than have a draft situation, and that's been something that the players have I wouldn't say complained about, but it's been a point that they've made in the past, hasn't it?
Yes, it has indeed. I think we can see more jostling for position.
Yes, it'll be interesting to see how things play out after this move by the BBL, if it comes to fruition. Subas, how do you feel about the reduction of matches in the women's tournament? Does it make sense to you?
Well, the reasoning there has been with an eye on national team players, but we've seen BBL going side by side with national team matches. And for me, get the season going, let the new faces take over. The women's game should be expanded, and even more so in Australia, where there looks to be an indefinite pool of talents.
Finally, gentlemen, as we always do, let's hear from you about something that's caught your attention this week in the world of cricket. John, first of all.
Well, Jimmy, chirpy to the end. He asked Shubman Gill if he scored any runs outside of India. Apparently, Gill told him it's time for him to retire, and then Jimmy gets him out 2 balls later. That's the stuff of cricket.
Yes, you always have to be careful when you sledge a bowler as a batter, because, of course, you only get one chance, whereas a bowler gets multiple opportunities to dismiss you. So very jolly, and, well, James Anderson getting his moment in the sun, or yet another moment in the sun, with his 700th Test wicket. Subas, what's tickled your attention this week?
So I was lucky enough to be part of one great initiative by an individual, Extra Tech Oval it is called. So first ever private cricket ground in Nepal was inaugurated with legends of Nepalese cricket from the first batch held in Nepal. So hopefully there will be much more to come if cricket needs to be developed, with government not batting any eye on development of infrastructure.
Well, that's a very encouraging situation in Nepal, and something to be applauded. And let's keep our eye out to see when more games are played at that venue. And hopefully it's a venue that'll go from strength to strength. Thanks so much then for joining us at The Wicket. And we'll be back soon with more cricket chat from the Gulf region, Asia and worldwide. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and comment on what you've heard wherever you get your podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback, and let us know if there's anything you'd like us to feature in future episodes. For now, though, this is Brian Murgatroyd along with Jon Pike and Subas Humagain saying thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to your company again next time.